My story didn't begin with gangs. It began at home. David's voice is calm, but heavy like every word carries the weight of years. He leans forward, elbows on his knees, hands clasped together, eyes fixed on a point in the past that no one else can see. I grew up in the San Gabriel Valley, right at the edge of East L.A. The neighborhood looked normal from the outside street signs in Chinese. Families walking with groceries, but inside my home, it was a different world. My father was an alcoholic. My mom, she tried her best, but it felt like we lived under a dictatorship. His word was law. His fists were the punishment. He pauses. You can almost hear the echoes of shouting, breaking bottles, the sharp crack of leather on skin. There were nights I watched my dad beat my mom until she collapsed. Nights I ended up in the ICU, lying in a hospital bed because of him. I was just a kid, man. How do you trust anyone after that? Every time I looked at him, I thought, if this is what a father is, then I don't want to be like him. Ever. At school, David didn't find safety either. He was 10 when it happened, the first time jumped by 4 older kids on his way home. They beat. Eames stole his shoes, ripped his backpack off his shoulders. I remember limping home barefoot, blood running down my face. I told my dad what happened, that I'd been jumped. You know what he did. He didn't believe me. He thought I threw my stuff away, that I was lazy, that I didn't care about school. And then he beat me for lying. That's when something broke inside me. When even your own father won't believe you. You learn to trust nobody but yourself. That loneliness, the sense of being invisible. Unheard became the soil where something darker grew. By 12, David had already learned the rules of survival. Keep your head down. Don't cry. Never look weak. But weakness has a smell. And the streets can always sniff it out. There was this crew, Chinese kids, a triad-affiliated gang. I saw them walking together. Money in their pockets, confidence in their stride. Nobody touched them. Nobody disrespected them. To me, at 12 years old, they looked like gods. Primera, Juan did that. I wanted to never feel small again. So he joined. The initiation wasn't glamorous. It was brutal, fast, and merciless. They told him, "You want in? Prove yourself." Within 3 months, he was in his first case, kidnapping and robbery. At 12, they dropped the charges. But still, imagine being 12 years old and already in front of a judge, facing years locked away. That was my life now. Youth authority, what they called was next. Inside, it wasn't a school. It was survival training. They called it gladiator school, David says, his jaw tight, because that's exactly what it was. You fought every day. Fought to prove you weren't weak. Fought to prove you belonged. If somebody disrespected you, you had 2 seconds to respond. If you didn't, you were done. You'd be labeled a punk forever. At 12, he learned to fight. He learned to stab. He learned that mercy was weakness, and weakness meant death. I watched kids get raped, stabbed, beaten, until they couldn't stand. I was just a boy. But by the time I left I didn't feel like a boy anymore. I didn't even feel human. I felt like an animal trained to survive. The violence hardened him, but beneath that hard shell, something else grew. Emptiness. I thought being in a gang would fill the hole inside me. I thought if I had brothers, money, power, then I wouldn't feel so alone. But every night, even surrounded by people, I still felt like that little boy with no shoes, no backpack, and no father to believe him. The first chapter of David's story isn't about gangs, or crime, or even violence. It's about a boy who wanted to be seen, to be loved, and who found instead a world that only knew how to break him. When you're 12 and they send you to lock up, you think you'll be seen at all. But prison is another world. David shifts in his chair, his voice dropping low, steady, almost measured. Yeah, it was already bad. But once I caught my second case as an adult assault with a deadly weapon, they sent me upstate. 10 years. 85%. That meant almost 9 years gone. Just like that. Walking through those prison gates for the first time, David felt the atmosphere hit him like a wall of heat. The clanging of metal doors. The smell of sweat and disinfectant. The shouts echoing off concrete. But the thing that really struck him, the stairs. You're Chinese in there? You're outnumbered. It doesn't matter what gang you ran with on the street. Inside, the rules change. You drop your flag. You drop. You drop your crew. You run with your race. Period. That's survival. At first, he didn't get it. It came in hot, still living with the mentality swing first. Asked questions later that got him into fights, beatings, write-up. But eventually, he learned. He learned what they called programming the unspoken rules, the hierarchy, how to carry yourself so you don't get eaten alive. After about a year, primera que la med don, I learned when to keep my head down, when to nod, when to speak up. I got my GED. I even did anger management. On paper, I was doing good. But inside, Alion's bike shakes his head slowly. Inside, I was empty. I could do all the programs, all the classes. Didn't matter. At night, when the noise quieted down and I was alone in my cell, there was this void in my chest, like a black hole, sucking everything in. No matter what I did, I couldn't fill it. He tried to escape it. Books, workouts, religion. I read the Quran front to back 3 times. I read the Bible twice. I thought maybe there was some secret in there, some magic words that would heal me. But when I closed the book, I was still me. Still broken. The older inmates noticed. They'd see him pacing, overthinking, staring at the walls. One old-timer pulled him aside. He told me, "Bro, you think too much. You need to occupy your mind. Read. Work out. Something. Otherwise, this place will eat you alive." So he did. He read. He lifted weights. Que, pet, busy. But nothing stopped the nights. At night, when it's quiet, you can't hide from yourself. You hear every thought, every mistake, every voice that tells you you're worthless. And in prison, surrounded by killers and lifers, you start believing it. You start thinking, "I belong. Tis, isol, helel, ever be." He pauses, eyes narrowing, like the memory itself still carries weight. Prison teaches you 2 things: how to survive and how to feel nothing. You can't show fear. You can't show sadness. But the crazy thing is, even when you shut your feelings off, the emptiness doesn't go away. It grows. Sometimes he would lie on his bunk, staring at the ceiling, wondering if this was it. If this cell, this routine, this emptiness was all his life would ever be. You ever felt dead but still breathing? That's what prison did to me. I was alive, technically. But inside, I was already gone. By the time David walked out on parole, the world hadn't changed. He had. Hardened, emptier, but still alive barely. I thought freedom would fix me, but when you're broken inside, it doesn't matter if the gate's open. You carry the prison with you. When I got out, I swore I'd do better. But the streets don't let you walk away that easy. David's eyes drift down as if he can still see the streets. He returned to the corners, the dealers, the constant hum of danger. I tried. Primera rea, like it. I applied everywhere. McDonald's, FedEx, Ops, all those places that say they hire felons. But every door slammed shut. 10 years in prison and 2 strikes on your record. You're marked. Society doesn't forgive that easy. Bills piled up. His parole officer breathing down his neck. His parents still stuck in poverty. So You went back. Back to the only thing I knew. Back to the streets. Selling dope. Making fast money. Looking over my shoulder every second because I was on parole. It was survival. But deep down, I knew this wasn't a life. It was a countdown. And then came the night. There was this guy, a dealer, well known in the area. I thought, why risk selling? If we just rob him, we'll get his whole stash, his money. Me and my boy planned it out. He'd go one way, I'd go the other. Quick, clean, done. David pauses, his hands rubbed together, restless. But it didn't go like that. As they approached the car, his friend stepped in front of him. So David went the other way, circling left instead of right. I heard 3 gunshots. Bam! Bam! My first thought, he shot the dealer. But then the car sped off. And my boy. My brother! He was on the ground. David's voice cracks for the first time. He was gasping, choking, blood pouring out. I held him. Man, I held him while he died in my arms. The sound he made, I'll never forget it. That was supposed to be me. If I'd gone right instead of left, I wouldn't be here talking to you. He saved me by accident, and he paid the price. David leans back, his eyes glassy. After that, I couldn't shake it. Everywhere I went, I felt death following me, like a shadow on my shoulder. 3 days later, another childhood friend, someone we grew up with in the projects, killed himself in jail. He'd written me a letter before it happened, talking about being gone. I didn't take it serious until it was too late. One friend shot, another gone by his own hand. Death was everywhere. And I thought, I'm next. He pauses, breathing slow, steady, trying to anchor himself. You start thinking, maybe it's better if it's me. Maybe I don't deserve to be here anyway. The streets took my childhood. Prison took my youth. And now death was taking everyone around me. What did I have left? That was the spiral, the point where most never come back. But for David, fate had another turn waiting. My mom's car broke down. She asked me to drive her to church. Just a ride, that's all. I told her, fine, but I don't want to hear about God. Don't try to preach to me. Just go do your thing. He laughs dryly, shaking his head, butts that ride. That simple ride to church after my friend's death. That was the first step toward everything changing. I told my mom I wasn't going in for the sermon, David says, a faint smile tugging at his mouth. I was just the ride. He remembers the smell, fir soy, garlic, something sweet. The small church kitchen was buzzing with voices, hands passing bowls and chopsticks. A laugh here, a shoulder squeeze there. A pastor stepped out from the crowd like he'd been waiting for David all along. He hits me with the friendliest ambush in the world. We've got black bean noodles. Eat first. I said, fine, but don't preach to me. We sat. We ate. I was at closed door, pretending to be polite. When the bowls were empty, the pastor wiped his hands and asked 2 questions. Are you a sinner? He says. And do you know what sin is? He got hot. I said, man, everybody sins. Sin is stabbing, lying, robbing, cheating. He shook his head. Not just that. The pastor leaned in, voice comme ça, almost surgical. Sin, he said, is trusting yourself above the word of God. 10a. Cite it. S also inheritance, something you're born into, like a last name or a face. You didn't choose to be Chinese, he told me. You were born that way. Likewise, you were born into a condition you can't fix by force of will. David looks down at his hands. I wanted to argue, but I kept seeing my life like a mirror shattering backward. Every choice I made felt less like freedom and more like gravity. The pastor opened the door wider with a picture anyone could touch. An apple seed can only make apples, he said. Not mangoes, not oranges. No matter how hard it tries, the seed reveals its nature as it grows. He looked at me and said, "We keep trying to force oranges out of apple seeds. Programs, promises, white-knuckle willpower, but the nature beneath keeps producing the same fruit." David laughs without humor. I'd read the Quran 3 times, and the Bible twice inside. I lifted. I studied. I stacked certificates like sandbags. And still, there was that hole inside my chest. The pastor laid one more image down simple. "Brutal. You wouldn't drive a car with a broken brake," he said. "I don't care if it's a Ferrari. If the accelerator overpowers the brake, it ends in a crash. Your desires are the gas. Self-control is the brake. If you rely only on yourself, the gas wins." Something in David's jaw relaxed, a muscle unclinched that had been tight for years. Then he asked about my father. I said, "I hate him. He broke me." The pastor didn't flinch. "Call him," he said. "Apologize." I almost flipped the table. "For what?" "Primera. Hua. Ese aquí." He was the drunk. The pastor nodded. "You're right." "And how's that rightness working for you? Does it make you less miserable?" David breathes out, long and slow. That line hit me like a punch. Being right hadn't healed a single thing. He stalled a day. 2. A week of pacing. The call came like ripping out a nail. East L.A, he answered, suspicious. "I don't have money for you." I swallowed 1,000 comebacks. I said, "It's not about money. I want to see you." We met at a faux spot in Alhambra. Neutral ground. Neon reflection on the table. Steam rising off the bowls. He wouldn't look at me. I couldn't look at him. David rehearsed the pastor's words silently. "Be wrong first. Put the sword down." I said, "Dad, I'm sorry." The words tasted like metal. I wasn't the son you needed. I brought shame. I brought fear. I didn't help you. "I didn't help, Mom." He twitched, like someone had cut a wire inside him. 10 my fatter, this man I'd only seen as anger and alcohol started to cry. David's voice thins. He said, "No, I'm sorry. I was a bad father. I ruined your childhood. I hurt your mother." I couldn't stop drinking. 20 years of ash turned to water in a minute. We were 2 stubborn men with empty tanks, and somebody finally opened a valve. They hugged awkward at first, boy and stranger, then tight, bone to bone. Something old died at that table. Something new breathed. Walking out, I noticed the air felt light. Same street, same sky, but I wasn't carrying the furniture of my rage anymore. He rubs his chest. The hole wasn't gone, but for the first time, it wasn't growing. Back at the church, the pastor didn't offer rules. He offered a trade. "You can keep trusting the voice that changes every 5 minutes," he said, "or you can trust the one that doesn't." He quoted a verse about sins remembered no more. I thought, that can't include me. He said, that especially includes you. David didn't become a saint overnight. I still woke up shaking some mornings, sweating through the old dreams. I still flinched at loud voices. The streets still called me by my old name. I had a new reflex. When that inner prosecutor stood up in court, I didn't argue back with more willpower. I handed the mic to a different attorney. He shrugs, a little embarrassed. Sounds churty, but it worked better than anything I'd tried. When I stopped defending myself and stopped condemning myself, there was finally space for something else to speak. The next hard thing was letting the apology grow legs. I started seeing my dad every week. We ate. We talked about small things, then bigger ones. He was still fragile around the bottle, still clumsy with feelings, but he showed up. Primera? Show up? Up. That was the miracle, not fireworks. Presence. The ripple hit the rest of his life. I wasn't white-knuckling the drugs anymore. The grip itself loosened. I wasn't pretending to be bulletproof, I admitted when I hurt. The old code said 2 seconds to swing, or you're a punk. The new code said 2 seconds to breathe, or you'll be a ghost. Around this time, David noticed his mother's face again, not the fear he'd memorized, but a softness he didn't recognize when he paroled. I realized she'd found a peace that didn't come from circumstances. Still poor. Still married to a man learning to be new. Still 2 sons with records. Yet lighter. That peace started leaking into me. He went back to the church kitchen, this time without protest. He washed dishes. He ate noodles. He listened more than he argued. The pastor asked him for nothing except honesty and time. One night he said, "Try this. When the old emptiness comes, don't fix it. Name it, then hand it over. Don't put a wig on cancer. Treat the root." I'd spent a decade lifting weights on my symptoms. That night, I put the weights down. David stares at the floor, smiling like he can't quite believe the memory belongs to him. It was ordinary. That's what made it holy. No. Tonder. Just a man finally telling the truth to his own heart. And finding the heart didn't explode. He called his brother. Told him I'd made peace with Dad. My brother laughed, thought I was recruiting for a cult. Then he saw I wasn't carrying a gun anymore. Wasn't disappearing for 3-day benders. He started coming around. We sat in the back on Sundays, arms folded, pretending not to care. Then staying for noodles. Then 4 conversations. The street didn't vanish. Temptations didn't burn off like fog, but the map changed. Before, every road ended in me. My strength, my plan, my anger, my hustle. Now there was another road, the one where I could be wrong first and not die from it. Where I could lose and not be lost. Where I could tell the truth and not be thrown away. He thinks about the friend who died in his arms. I still hear the sound he made. Some nights, it visits. I don't fight it. I tell him I'm sorry. I tell him I'm trying to live the life he didn't get. I let the grief sit next to me instead of inside me. The chapter closes in a small room, not a cathedral. Chillin' upon a kitchen. Chopsticks on porcelain. Steam rising. A man choosing to be wrong so something right can finally enter. That was my turn, David says. Not the miracles. The micro-choices eat. Lisa. Co-apologize. Suapagain. It turns out survival wasn't the opposite of surrender. Sometimes survival was surrender, laying down the knife I held to my own throat. He looks up, eyes clearer than when he began. I didn't get a new past. I got a new present. And for the first time since I was a kid with no shoes and no backpack, I felt like I might have a future. I never thought I'd see 40. I thought the streets would bury me long before that. But here I am. David smiles faintly. Lines of age and battle etched into his face. After making peace with my father, the rest of my life started shifting. I didn't force it. I didn't white-knuckle it like before. Drugs. They just slipped away. Violence. I didn't crave it anymore. It wasn't about willpower. It was about hope. And for the first time, I had some. He started small, washing dishes at church, helping his mom with errands, sitting in rooms where he once would have stormed out. I learned survival wasn't about swinging first anymore. It was about staying, being present, not running from the pain. The change didn't go unnoticed. His brother, fresh out of prison, saw it. He laughed at first, said I'd gone soft. But then he saw I wasn't carrying a gun. He saw I was smiling. Real smiles, not the fake hard ones. Eventually, he came with me. Now we go together. We sit in the same pew where Mom used to pray for us. That's a miracle. David's life expanded beyond family. He began visiting prisons not as an inmate, but as a messenger. I stand in front of lifers, guys doing LWO. Pilif without parole. I don't tell them, be good, Stop being bad. They've heard that 1,000 times. I tell them, I know the emptiness. I know the voice that says you'll never change. And I know that voice is lying. He travels now Thailand, Korea, prisons across America, sharing his story, planting the same seed the pastor planted in him. The craziest part, I was supposed to be dead. My friend took the bullets meant for me. Every time I think about that, I remember I'm living on borrowed time, so I better spend it right. David still visits his father every week. They eat noodles, laugh about small things, talk about life. The old bitterness has dissolved into something softer. My dad never became perfect. I didn't either, but we forgave. And forgiveness built something stronger than perfection. It built peace. He looked straight ahead, voice steady. When people ask me what changed my life, they expect me to say God, or church, or prison. But really, it was one word. Sorry. One apology cracked open 20 years of rage. One apology gave me back my father, my brother, my future. David leans back, quiet for a moment, then adds, I was a gang member, a convict, Los Caos. Now I'm a survivor, and if I can find hope, anyone can.